Guru edase guru Ahe Vaishnava Thakura Doyara Sagara edase karuna kori Jaya Vega Domi, Jaya Dosha Shodhi, Jaya Guna Deho Dase. Jaya Vega Domi, Jaya Dosha Shodhi, Jaya Guna Deho Dase. Jaya Guna Deho Dase. Satsanga deho hai amare, Jaya Satsanga deho hai amare, Jaya Satsanga deho hai amare, Pushechi Sangero Mashe. Harinam Sankirtane Tumi kripa kore Shadavindu diya Tumi kripa kore Shadavindu diya Tumi kripa kore Shadavindu diya Deho Krishna Namadane
Hare Krishna, welcome everyone.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you, Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for joining.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna. Very nice to see everyone again. We're starting a new book, and this one is the Isopanisad, very special one. And it's a very, very blissful nectarian book. So let me just share. We'll start with the prayers to the spiritual master. Om Jnanam Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupa Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangsha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is the Isopanisad, and this is very interesting. Isopanisad is very unique in that Srila Prabhupada translated many books, but the only Upanishad that he translated is the Sri Isopanisad. Or taken another way, among all the books that he translated an Upanishad. Someone could say, right, that, well, what about Vedanta? Srila Prabhupada didn't give us Vedanta. Vedanta basically means the Upanishads. Veda Anta. Vedanta means Veda Anta, the end of the Vedas. The Upanishads are literally the end of the Vedas. They come towards the conclusion or the end of the Vedas, as we will see. And Vedanta is based on the Upanishads. Vedanta is based on the Vedanta Sutra, and the Vedanta Sutra is based on the Upanishads. And so the Upanishads are like the main philosophical, bread and butter of the entire tradition. So although we are not so concerned with the Upanishads, we are happy with the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Nectar of Devotion, but to give the philosophy a solid philosophical grounding the philosophy in the Upanishads is very important, because the Upanishads are Shruti. They are considered to be directly spoken by the Lord. They're part of the Vedas. The Veda is, the sound vibration emanating from the Lord. Some people say the conch shell of Vishnu, others the flute sound of Krishna. But the Vedas are eternal. The Veda is non-different than the Lord. And so our philosophy has to be grounded in this Vedic tradition. And to give it solid philosophical grounding, Srila Prabhupada grounded it in the Shri Isopanisad, which is one of the principal Upanishads. There's many Upanishads, but Isopanisad, among all circles, is considered to be one of the most foundational, important, principal Upanishads. And he is showing in his translation and commentary on the Isopanishad how the Isopanishad leads us to Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, how the Isopanishad is teaching us bhakti. And in fact, it is. If you look at the Isopanishad is one of the Upanishads that the Mayavadis don't like talking about, that they don't like discussing so much. One of my Sanskrit teachers was a Mayavadi, and he would struggle with the Upanishads because they were so obviously theistic, so obviously personal in nature. And so Isopanishad is very clearly establishing, supporting the principles of Krishna consciousness, of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and thus the importance of this text. Actually, many devotees have been made by reading Shri Isopanishad. So when devotees distribute books, then they give different books. And some books, just by hearsay or people notice, tend to attract people to Krishna consciousness, make them into devotees. And so Isopanishad is a book that is meant to attract them, that is meant to bring them in, draw them in to Isopanishad is meant to draw them into Krishna consciousness, and they join Krishna consciousness by reading this book. It's one of those books that particularly makes people into devotees, and not just in India, but in the West, like Americans, because it's very cutting philosophy. Anyone who's a philosopher will read the Isopanishad and be impressed by it. It's more accessible to people in some ways. So, what is the meaning of this word Shri Isopanishad? So, Isha, Shri means glorious, or it's just respect for the text. So, Isha refers to the Lord, the Supreme Controller. So this is the Upanishad about Isha, about the Lord. Very simple. It's the Upanishad about God. Now, what does Upanishad mean? Upanishad means, Upa means near, Ni means down, Shad means to sit. So near, down, sit. Sit near a spiritual teacher to learn. There are 4 Vedas, the Rig, the Yajur, the Sama, and the Atharva. Shri Isopanishad is found in the Yajur Veda. So, as I mentioned, it's directly in the Veda itself. Yajur means instructions for performing sacrifice. Veda means knowledge. So, the Vedas mainly deal with knowledge concerning sacrifices, rituals, karmakanda. However, the end of the Vedas, kind of the sections of the Vedas, while the person goes in looking for how to become wealthy by religious means, how to perform sacrifices to become go to Indra Lok and become the king of heaven, but in between, just like in a lollipop, the doctor will put medicine inside. In between these or towards the end of these Vedic knowledge, the flowery words of the Vedas, like Krishna tells Arjuna, Traigunya Vishya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjana. That the Vedas which deal with the 3 gunas, within that, he's inserted these Upanishads so that people will read them and realize that the goal of this ritualistic sacrifice is not to become materially prosperous, but to purify one's existence. The goal of it is to give these sacrifices up and surrender unto the Lord. And so that's why the Upanishads are so special. Shri Isopanisad unlocks the secret to satisfaction and fulfillment. It defines good and evil. It reveals the Lord, and it invokes Krishna's mercy. So this is what it has, 4 main themes. And these are not just beautiful words on the slide. They're actually the 4 main themes, and you'll see they'll go along with the sections of the Isopanisad. First section, which we look at today, is unlocks the secret to satisfaction and fulfillment. The biggest problem in this society and in our lives is dissatisfaction, right? We're always dissatisfied. We try to change our external situation. We try to change the people around us because we feel dissatisfied by that situation or by those persons. Isopanisad teaches us how to be satisfied in any situation, undisturbed and fulfilled. Same thing, satisfaction, fulfillment. And it tells us a practical way, a real way on how to do that, and we'll learn that today. Second, it defines good and evil. So Isopanisad tells us what is good and what is evil. And especially, we also touch on this today. So especially in terms of spiritual advancement or the Lord, what is good and what is evil. The third is that it reveals the Lord. And the fourth is that it invokes Krishna's mercy. It invokes Krishna's mercy. So Prabhupada here tells us, well, who is the author of the Isopanisad? Right? The Upanishads I mentioned were part of the Vedas and they're eternal. Regarding your first question, Srila Prabhupada writes, who is the speaker of Isopanisad? The speaker is the Vedas personified. In the Vedic age, a disciple heard from the spiritual master messages which were coming down in disciplic succession. So a disciple, whatever he heard from his bona fide spiritual master, would recite. The Vedic mantras are known as Shruti, to hear from authoritative sources, and then repeat it, chanting. So there's no question of who wrote it. It is said that no human being has compiled them. Later on, before the beginning of Kali Yuga, all Vedic mantras were written in books. Most of them were done by Srila Vyasadeva Mahamuni and his different disciples. So this knowledge is eternal. The speaker is the Vedas personified, who is non-different than the Lord. And they were written down by Vyasadeva 5,000 years ago. And Prabhupada says, and his different disciples. So he doesn't even necessarily restrict it just to Vyasadeva, but even some of his disciples may have written down sections of the Vedas. So, but the main point is that this knowledge is eternal, revealed to us by the Supreme Lord. So modern philosophers, they actually call the Upanishads path philosophies. Like Eastern philosophy is a path philosophy because it's not philosophy only for philosophy's sake, but rather it's philosophy for the sake of reaching a goal. That's called path philosophy. Philosophy for philosophy's sake is armchair philosophy, what you see they do in Western philosophy. Can God make a rock that he cannot lift? How do you draw a square circle, right? So like foolish things like that are philosophically maybe interesting, but there's no practical benefit for that knowledge. But the Upanishads give us philosophy, but they give philosophy that, like the Bhagavatam says, that is there for the welfare of all. The philosophy that actually benefits us, and they give a philosophy that is a practice. They give us a philosophy that you can practice, and as a result of that practice, you understand it further. So philosophy that's understood through practice. It's a philosophy that leads to practice, but also when you practice it, you understand it further. So what a person believes and how a person acts are intimately related. A person who has no belief in the existence of God will act simply according to his whims and desires, accepting them as the only purpose in life. A person who believes in God only as the Creator and Father to be feared and obeyed will attempt to follow his laws, but will also try to enjoy his own desires as much as possible. But a person who sees God as a supreme enjoyer and friend will simply try to serve him with devotion, while practicing detachment from his or her selfish desires. Thus, our beliefs and actions combined make up our overall lifestyle. So this is not just belief and this is not just action, but this is both belief and action. And this is one of the themes of Isopanisad. It tells you philosophy, and it also tells us how to act, starting the very first verse. All revealed scriptures stress the purification of our beliefs and actions by giving us spiritual knowledge and practices to follow. So it's not just that we have to believe, but we have to purify ourselves so that we can understand things nicely. We have to purify ourselves so we can act nicely. And that's why, theology can never be separated from purification and practice. And this is the great fault of the modern Western academics and theology. When we do it in a university setting, there's no lifestyle that's connected to it. And therefore, people never understand it. By studying and realizing this knowledge and following these practices, we can make genuine spiritual advancement. So everything, all the books and what they offer can be divided in terms of Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Sambandha is knowledge, which begins in this section. We'll look at the invocation and verses 1 through 3. So the invocation gives us the basic knowledge. The Supreme Lord is fully complete in his 3 features, and we are complete when we are dovetailed with him. The practices, the practical application, mantra 1, accept only your quota, accept only our quota, and engage in the Lord's service. So if you know that the Lord owns everything and is a complete whole, then we should only accept what is our quota. And prayojana, which is the goal is achieve everlasting life. That is the goal. So if you engage in the Lord's service, then you will attain the Lord. So let's now start. So this is kind of an overview. Now let's start with the introduction. In the introduction to the Isopanisad, Prabhupada begins by telling the 4 defects, essentially establishing why do we need the Isopanisad? Why do we need these spiritual books? We need them because we ourselves cannot get this knowledge through our own senses because we have these 4 defects. And therefore, we need knowledge that is beyond these 4 defects, that is coming from a person who's beyond these defects. So what are these 4 defects that we have, due to which we cannot figure out the truth ourselves, but we need revelation. We need the knowledge revealed to us by Krishna. In our present materially conditioned state, we cannot attain perfect knowledge through our sense perception, pratyaksha, or logical reasoning, anuman, due to our 4 defective tendencies, which are what? 1, to commit mistakes. 2, to be illusioned or to accept what is not. 3, to have imperfect senses. And 4, to cheat or be cheated. So the 4 defects: to commit mistakes. We all make mistakes. To be illusioned, to accept that which is not, to accept the mirage as water. 3, to have imperfect senses. Our senses are imperfect, Prabhupada says. In the dark, we cannot even see our hand. And number 4, to cheat or be cheated. We allow ourselves to be cheated, or we like to cheat others. Every human being likes to cheat if they get the opportunity to. So these are the 4 defects in every human being. So then how can we attain perfect knowledge? Thus, we must rely on the 3rd process of acquiring knowledge, to hear from higher authorities, Shabda Praman, or the Vedic literatures, which are free from all imperfections. Transcendental or spiritual knowledge is far beyond the reach of our material senses. Pratyaksha or logic, Anuman. Therefore, we must accept Vedic knowledge as it is revealed by the highest authority, the Supreme Lord Krishna, who has been accepted as such by all transcendentalists and acharyas of the past. In order to realize spiritual knowledge, one must approach a spiritual master who has also properly heard the Vedic message from his spiritual master and who is fixed in spiritual life. Such a self-realized soul can lead us to the goal of Vedic knowledge, Krishna. So we must receive it from someone who has realized this truth, like Prabhupada, like Krishna says in the Gita, Tattva Darshi, and that person is fixed in spiritual life. They themselves are grounded in spiritual life. So Prabhupada says, because this Isopanisad has been revealed to us, it is free from the 4 defects. It's not produced by someone who has the 4 defects. Therefore, Shri Isopanisad is an authorized scripture. Quote, there is a spiritual sky. There is another nature which is beyond manifestation and non-manifestation. But how will you know that there is a sky where the planets and inhabitants are eternal? All this knowledge is there, but how will you make experiments? It is not possible. Therefore, you have to take the assistance of the Vedas. This is called Vedic knowledge. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we are accepting knowledge from the highest authority, Krishna. Krishna is accepted as the highest authority by all classes of men. I am speaking first of the 2 classes of transcendentalists. One class of transcendentalists is called impersonalistic Mayavadi. They are generally known as Vedantists, led by Shankaracharya. And there is another class of transcendentalists called Vaishnavas, like Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, and Vishnu Swami. So here's the overview of the first 4 verses that we will be covering. The first one is the invocation, which is the principle of completeness. Mantra 1, how to practice that completeness. Mantra 2, the positive result of such practice. Mantra 3, the negative result of not doing such practice. Very logical. So now deep into this. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. So this is the first one, principle of completeness. This personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is a complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. So this is very foundational philosophy, very foundational verse for our tradition, for theism in general and Vaishnavism in particular, that Krishna is complete, meaning that all things emanate from him. Good, bad, everything comes from him. Because if there's anything outside of him, if there's anything outside of God, then that means there's 2 gods. That means there's something that is in constant competition with God. Like, sometimes in the Christian tradition, they say there's God and there's Satan. And God has no control over Satan. God did not create Satan or evil. Satan is, a free bird. But if he lives independent of God, then how can God be God? Everything comes from God. It's part of God. This is what Isopanisad is establishing. Such as this phenomenal world, even this world with all of its imperfections, with all of, its problems, is coming from the Lord. Yet, all these emanations are also equipped as complete wholes. So this world has so many imperfections. You see, how is it perfectly equipped as a complete whole? Because why? In what sense is the world perfect? Who can say? In what sense is the world perfect? There's so many imperfections every day. We have some problem, some disease, something, some earthquake. But in what way is the world perfect? Just unmute yourself.
Like a rising sun in the morning, all that natural.
Sorry, Prabhu, what you're saying again?
Sun rising in the morning, like all that natural.
Yes. So it's very scientifically created. That's true. But if it was even more scientifically created, then we wouldn't get cancer, right? Like we get skin cancer because of the sun. Some people do. If it was made even more perfectly, then there wouldn't be earthquakes. But there is something that makes it perfect.
Hare Krishna Prabhu,
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam.
Yes.
This world is created by the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That itself shows it is perfect, right?
Yes. But that's the very challenge, that it's created by him, but I didn't feel that it was perfect because there's so much pain and suffering in this world.
But it is karma that balances things out, right? So we say that, I think we've heard a lot of acharyas talk about COVID. Why did COVID happen? It's because of all collective karma, or I guess that affected that. So it kind of balances out. You have good things and bad things.
Yes, that is true.
Also,
That is very good. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
also if so there is when there is destruction, there is also creation, and if there is pain, there is also healing. So it's like a cycle. Things go down, but then things come up as well. It's a complete whole coming from the perfect whole, which is which is God himself. So
so yes, it's coming from the Lord. It's because the Lord is complete, it's coming. Therefore it must be perfect, but we're trying to understand, how is it perfect?
For the perfect reason, Prabhuji, like, God has created this for some reason, to reclaim us or to put us in.
Okay, so a perfect reason. So we're getting warmer here. And Rajiv Prabhu said, well, karma, right? Karma is there, so that balances it out. There's a perfect reason for it. What is that perfect reason? So let's discuss that. That will help us. What is that perfect reason?
It is complete whole, as in the sense that everything here is in a way designed to remind us about Krishna.
Okay, but when I watch a film, it doesn't remind me about Krishna. In fact, there's so much here to take me away from Krishna. But what is the perfect reason why we come to this world?
Because of forgetfulness.
Forgetfulness of God. Okay. And so then what is the thing that the world does? That's the perfect reason. Forgetfulness of God, turning against God, turning away from God, wanting to be God ourselves.
Envious of
These
God.
feelings we come to this world. So what does this world do?
So the world is everything is cyclical, right? Even the solar system is circling around galaxy and all the solars like
Yeah,
Earth.
so that's how things are working. But what
Earth
is the purpose of this?
and even the life,
Right.
like if life of the on the planet, it is also cyclical, right? So it is like creating its own. It is supporting its own system. Right? So everything which is happening in this world is created by the Krishna is such a way that it is helping support the whole system, and it in a way it is serving Krishna's purpose, of this particular whole serving the god, right? So even if you say all the animals which are doing,
Yes.
some are like eating someone and that get eaten up, and then it becomes soil, and soil the microbes then disappear the soil, it creates the trees and all those things. It's all they are serving the Lord's purpose on this on all these planets, not just Earth but everywhere else.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
actually our senses are not perfect, and our Shruti, like who are the people who are in self-realization platform, or who are liberated soul, they
Yes.
are actually perfect, and they don't have anything like material disease, or I mean, they don't feel it, or they don't belong to these material things. So actually it is perfect, but because of our imperfect senses, we go through all these material disease and all these problems.
Yes, yes. So that is there. Now in the previous comment, we said that how the material world fulfills the purpose of the Lord. It fulfills, the Lord is perfect, his perfect purpose. So that's correct answer. It fulfills the purpose of the Lord. But let's be specific now. What is that purpose that it fulfills? That perfect purpose that makes this world perfect?
So, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
I think it's a perfect opportunity to realize the absolute truth and go back to Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yes. So said slightly differently, correct, is that the world is perfect because it's
I
perfect
don't
for
know.
its
It's an
purpose.
opportunity to
Yes.
for humans to read the Vedic scriptures, do chanting, and
Yes.
to realize this absolute truth and go back to the Krishna.
Yes. So the world is perfect for its purpose because the world is perfect in bringing us back to Godhead. It's perfect in rectifying the conditioned souls and bringing them back to Krishna. So there's so many imperfections in this world, but those imperfections are perfect. Those imperfections are perfect because they are perfect in bringing us back home, back to Godhead. Just like, to give you an example, just like you have a prison house. Right now, prison house has so much pain in it. It has so much suffering in it, but it's perfect because, so it's meant to have pain and suffering in it. But what would make a prison house perfect? A prison house will be perfect if it's perfectly capable of rectifying the prisoners who go in and making them into good people. So similarly, this material world is perfect because it's perfect for its purpose of rectifying the conditioned souls and bringing them back to Krishna. That is perfect in fulfilling the Lord's purpose for this world. And many of you were saying that this is what the point that you were coming to. That's the goal, you see. So just give me 1 second. I have it's urgent, that's why.
Prabhuji,
Sorry. Yes, sorry. I have a guest coming to my home, and so I'm just booking an Uber for them, and I got this. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right. So, anything unclear on this? Any further question? So, first thing that the Isopanisad establishes is this completeness, and then it says that the Lord is complete, and then it says whatever the Lord produces is perfectly complete. So that includes this world. We discussed how it's perfect for its purpose. That includes all the living beings. We are also perfectly complete wholes. But our perfection and completeness is in relationship with the Lord. Because someone might say that, well, if we are perfectly complete wholes, then that means we are God. And that's exactly what I always knew and always said, that we are God. But no, the point here is that the finger is perfect, and it's a perfectly complete whole. But its completeness is inherently, and its perfection is inherently in relationship with the hand. Separately, it is not complete. However, the body as a whole can exist independently. Similarly, the Lord can be independent, but the individual parts, they're complete, they're perfect. But their completeness and perfection is realized in connection with the rest of the body. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself, because he is the complete whole. Even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. Now, finally, what he says is that you say, well, if you remove all the parts of the body, then what's left is nothing. But what the verse here is saying is that in the case of the Lord is infinite. The Lord is infinite. So if you take out any amount from infinite, it still remains infinite. So we cannot remove things from Krishna. We're part of Krishna, but even if we cut out the parts, what's left is still going to be Krishna, fully Krishna, because he's unlimited. He's infinite. So this verse is the foundation of knowledge of the Supreme Person. The invocation provides a foundation of knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The most important point to be understood here is that the Absolute Truth is ultimately a person. Even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. It is not that since everything has come from him, that he is just spread out everywhere in some impersonal way, as our mundane logic would conclude. He maintains his own personality. He maintains his own personality. So the Supreme Lord is complete in three aspects. Prabhupada writes in the purport, the all-pervading impersonal feature does exist and is known as Brahman. This Brahman is present as the Lord's own effulgence and encompasses his aspect of Sat, or eternity. So impersonal feature, Brahman. The only feature of the Lord that is manifest is his feature as eternity. Because Brahman is undifferentiated oneness. There's no qualities or activities in it. So all it is, it's eternal. Krishna Satchit Ananda, so Sat. He is also present in a more personal way, locally in the heart of every living creature and within every atom. This feature is known as Paramatma and encompasses his aspect of Chit, or knowledge. So eternity, knowledge. So how does the Paramatma encompass eternity and knowledge, but not Ananda? So I'll just read the last one. But the highest realization of him as the Supreme Person, Bhagavan, who encompasses his aspect of bliss through his own pastimes of Ananda, or enjoyment. So in Bhagavan, we have Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Understanding the Lord as the Supreme Person means there's blissful relationships, there's knowledge of who the Lord is, and the Lord is eternal. But in the case of Paramatma, why does the Paramatma only include Sat and Chit? Anyone want to suggest?
Because it is not person.
It's
So
not a
there,
person. Yes.
so there is no bliss in it, actually.
Very
That's
nice.
my understanding.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. Other thoughts?
Prabhuji, since Paramatma is all pervading, so we cannot conceive in our limited mind of like a single, a person we see as a single person is pervaded. So, just.
Well, so on both of your cases, I want to kind of sort of little bit of a correction, maybe, that Paramatma is a person. Paramatma is one of the Vishnu features. We have Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Kshirodakshay Vishnu, and Karanadakshay Vishnu. And Paramatma is Kshirodakshay Vishnu. It's the Vishnu that enters into every atom, into every soul, into every body. So Paramatma is a person. It's a form of Lord Vishnu. But that form, in terms of us, only exhibits eternity and knowledge. Why? Because when we see the Lord within the heart, like Dhruva Maharaj, he saw the Lord within the heart, then that Lord is eternal. We understand eternity. We are in touch with eternity. And by seeing the Lord, we have complete knowledge about the Lord because we're seeing him. We know who the Lord is. However, with the Lord within the heart, we cannot have a relationship of service. We cannot, offer him a garland. We cannot, bathe his body. We cannot, dance with him. We cannot, run with him. It's the representation of the Lord. It's a personal representation of the Lord within the heart. But that heart, the Paramatma, that heart is just realizing the Paramatma, but is not able to serve. And therefore, service is possible only in the Bhagavan realization, and it's through service that we get Ananda, real Ananda, true Ananda. You see, so that's why there are the three conceptions. This complete Lord is realized in three aspects, but the realization is not complete unless we understand Bhagavan, because we're realizing different aspects of the Lord, but all three we only realize in his personal feature. So, when we are dovetailed to the complete whole, we are also complete. The individual living entities are also complete in themselves, but remain as parts of the complete whole. Prabhupada gives the example of the hand, which is also complete in itself, as still being part of the whole body. In order for the living entities to feel a sense of completeness or full satisfaction, they must dovetail their enjoyment with the enjoyment of the complete whole as the Supreme Person. Thus, this foundational verse of knowledge gives us a hint of our relationship with him. So Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission: Krishna is a person. The complete whole is not formless. If he were formless, or if he were less than his creation in any other way, he could not be complete. The complete whole must contain everything, both within and beyond our experience. Otherwise, he cannot be complete. So here in the purport to the invocation, Srila Prabhupada gives such a powerful argument that Krishna is a person. And this is why I was mentioning how Isopanisad makes so many devotees. Because when people read this, it's so like Isopanisad, in some ways, it's the book of reason. He establishes it based on scripture, but also on reason. The complete whole cannot be formless, he's saying. Because if he's complete, the Lord has to possess everything that his creation has. Otherwise, he's incomplete. The complete whole must contain everything both within and beyond our experience. So profound the way Prabhupada writes. He writes like a philosopher of the highest degree. If he were formless, or if he were less than his creation in any way, he could not be complete. So one thing is that God obviously is a complete person, right? People say God means complete. But if he is complete, then he must be more than his creation. He cannot lack what his creation has. Therefore, God must be a person. And this is why Isopanisad is the foundation. It's a cornerstone for Prabhupada's mood and his mission. It establishes that Krishna is a person. And here's mantra 1. So given this knowledge of the fact that Krishna is a person, and that Krishna is a complete whole, how does one act? Remember we said Isopanisad is belief and action, right? Belief and practice. So it's not just belief. Okay, I believe God is a complete whole. I believe God is a supreme person. But if you believe that, then what is the action? What is the practice? This is mantra 1. It's now telling us that. Ishavashamidam sarvam. Ishavashamidam sarvam. Yatkincha jagatyam jagat. Yatkincha jagatyam jagat. Tena tyaktena bhunjita. Tena taktena bhunjita. Ma gridha kashya svidhanam. Ma gridha kashya svidhanam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord, because he's the complete whole, right? Is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things. Therefore, one should only accept those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So this is the Ishavasya principle that Prabhupada and devotees talk about very often, that knowing that the Lord owns everything, all the land in the world belongs to the Lord, not to us or to our country or our nationality. We should therefore only accept that which we need. We should not accept more than what we need or that which we don't possess. This principle is so valuable and it's so important, because the fact is that unless we follow this principle, people will suffer and the world cannot be sustained. This mature world is a zero-sum game. Prabhupada says it's a zero-sum game, meaning that if I have a lot, it means that someone else has less. It's not possible for me to have a lot and someone else also, and everyone to have a lot. But I must accept what is my quota. If I take more than my quota, then I will be entangled. If I accept more than what I need, if I accept more than what the Lord has set aside for me, then immediately I am implicated. Immediately someone else is suffering. So you say, well, I mean, I live in America and I earn this money, and what's wrong for me to enjoy in this way and, and just waste money, but there is. Because if you are accepting too much, then someone somewhere else is suffering because of that. So we should only accept that which is our quota. Mantra 1 reveals our practice of accepting only our quota and engaging in the Lord's service. Mantra 1 simply states that everything belongs to the Lord. And so we should accept only as much as He has given for our quota. We need to understand that without the material ingredients which the Lord has provided, we cannot produce anything on our own. Prabhupada states, but for the Lord, no one is a proprietor of anything. So we think that this is my house, my family, my nation, my such and such, but no one is the proprietor of anything. And we see this, how different world events, we can see how overnight, if the Lord desires, people lose everything. Like the people in Ukraine, right? Some of them, they were showing a film. Actually, President Zelensky showed this film to Congress, where just like a month before the war, people were in, the square of, Kiev, and they were, shopping and buying things, and they had malls, and young boys and girls were walking together, wearing nice clothes and, listening to their music with their iPhones and this and that. Just like, beautiful, and we think that we're entitled, that this is actually mine, and that I'm entitled to this enjoyment. Why should anyone come in the middle of my enjoyment? Because I'm entitled to this. And then a month later, he's showing how, broken buildings, no one on the streets, people are, rushing to get, 2 pieces of bread and some water. People are, in the hospital. People are, fleeing the country, leaving businesses that they spent 20, 40 years to establish. 40 years of their life, they established that business. Finally, it was prospering. It was a restaurant in the middle of town. And now it's all, either covered with smoke or blown up. And they're taking 2 suitcases and trying to cross the border, hoping that someone on the other side of the border in Poland will accept them and not abuse them and not, mistreat them. These people thought that they are the proprietor. And unfortunate reality is that the Lord showed them that no, only the Lord is the proprietor. At any time, anything can happen to us, and we can lose everything that we have. So it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the Lord. And knowing this, we should only accept what is our quota. When people were fleeing, most people fled, right? They left the country, millions upon millions of people. Then they were leaving with what was their quota, 2 suitcases. So if that's what they had from before, then they would not have felt any pain. The self-realized soul, anyway, he doesn't think anything belongs to him. So when the Lord takes something away, they don't suffer because they understand nothing belongs to me. Why am I trying to establish my, my proprietorship, my controllership over my home, my family, my, my car, my, this and that. This is why Jesus was saying, if someone asks for your coat, give them your t-shirt as well. Because we are not the proprietor. Give it away, because it is not ours to be enjoyed. It is that charity helps us realize that it doesn't belong to us. Voluntarily, it helps us realize. And if we don't do it voluntarily, if we don't voluntarily give charity, then Prabhupada says, then Krishna takes it away by force. Because if we don't voluntarily give away what is not our quota, then Krishna will take away what is not our quota. This is why charity is not an option, it is a necessity. Because charity we must do. We do it voluntarily or involuntarily. Carrying this responsibility of recognizing the authority of the Lord, human beings are meant to offer everything in the Lord's service for his enjoyment. By limiting ourselves to only our material necessities, we gradually detach ourselves from material activities. By first offering everything we have to the Lord, we gradually become attached to spiritual activities by partaking in his enjoyment. So, and the first realization is that this doesn't belong to me. I'm enjoying only what Krishna has given me as my quota. But the second realization is that that since it doesn't belong to me, who does it belong to? It belongs to the Lord. And therefore, whatever I have should be used in the Lord's service. Whatever I have should be used in Krishna's service and in the service of Krishna's devotees. Because Krishna's devotees means Krishna, right? Krishna means Krishna's, his paraphernalia, his servants, his devotees, everything. It includes him. So this is the mood of an advanced soul, of an advanced devotee, that they want to engage everything in the service of the devotees. Prabhupada recalls that as a child, he would see that his father would invite at least 10 sadhus a day to his home to feed them prasadam. At least 10 sadhus every day. And that was the principle Prabhupada describes at that time. That was a principle because it would remind the householder that this doesn't belong to me. That whatever I have should be used in the service of the sadhus. And Prabhupada's father's hope was that if among all these sadhus, if there's even one genuine sadhu, and if he blesses my son to become a pure devotee of the Lord, then my life is successful. But Prabhupada would go and ask his father, he said, why do you invite all these sadhus to your home? Because can't you see most of them are taking bidi and they're quacks. Why do you invite them? And Prabhupada's father says, yes, I know most of them are not genuine. But among them, he says, I know that I'm sure most of them are not genuine. But he says, but among them, if there's even one that is genuine, and if he blesses you, then your life is successful. And therefore, any sadhu would come and Prabhupada's father would ask them that please bless my son, Abhay Charan, that he may become a unflinching servitor of Srimati Radharani. So that's our prayer. That's our meditation. That how can I use everything, every resource that I have, my body, my mind. Mind is also my intelligence and my possessions, everything in the service of the Lord. Prabhupada defines good and evil in Mantra and Purport. The root of sin is deliberate disobedience to the laws of nature through disregarding the proprietorship of the Lord. Disobeying the laws of nature or the order of the Lord brings a ruin to a human being. So sin means to disobey the order of the Lord. Sin means to disregard the natural course of things. Conversely, one who is sober, who knows the laws of nature, and who is not influenced by unnecessary attachment or aversion is sure to be recognized by the Lord, and thus become eligible to go back to Godhead, back to the eternal home. So, very beautiful point here that dharma or righteousness means, from the Mahabharata, this definition is there, it means that which sustains. So that which is good is that which sustains. The laws of nature are there to help people sustain. So if we follow the laws of nature, this world will not be destroyed due to climate change, due to poverty. But if we don't follow the laws of nature, we pollute this world. We act opposite to what our nature is, what a woman's nature is, what a man's nature is, what a child's nature is, what an old person's nature is, then we are set to ruin. And so these are the first two verses, the invocation and mantra 1. I'm going to stop here and see if there's any comments, questions, corrections. We actually did 3 things today. We did the introduction, we did the invocation, and we did mantra 1. So any comment, any question? Yashoda Vatsala Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam. Thank you so much for this session today.
Yes.
And thank you for, giving us that root cause of, why Srila Prabhupada, specifically went for Isopanisad. And
yes,
I always used to wonder, and then some of my friends and relatives, they also learn to it through their other paths. And it was always a great pleasure to say that yes, we also learn and we also understand what Isopanisad is trying to give us. Here basically I wanted to a very basic question, Prabhuji. I'm really sorry, but I don't know who recited this first, who recited Isopanisad first.
Okay, very good question.
Who wrote it? Yeah.
See, Isopanisad is part of the Vedas. It's the actual part of the Vedas. This is one reason why Isopanisad is considered the principal Upanishads, because some Upanishads are subsidiaries to the Vedas, but the 16 principal Upanishads are part of the Vedas. So this is part of the Veda, and Prabhupada was saying that the Veda is eternal. The speaker of the Veda is the Lord himself. It's eternal. Knowledge passed down from master to disciple, and then in Kali Yuga, because people's memories are short, Vyasadeva writes down all the Vedas, which includes the Isopanisad, and then we have a translator who translates the works. Prabhupada translates the work, and then after that, we simply get this knowledge pure and through Vyasadeva's mercy. So there's the speaker is the Lord himself. Yes. Rajiv Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Is it?
It's me, right? Sanjeev Prabhu, you said? Okay. So actually, in this world is perfect, I had heard one quote.
Sorry, the Rajiv Sham Prabhu's hand was up first, so I had asked him. Yes. No,
okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Prabhu. So is it true that Isopanisad it's part of Yajurved? It's
yes.
Like I heard that it is like chapter 39 or chapter 40 of Yajurved.
Yes, that's absolutely right. So in my first slide, I covered that. I mentioned how the Isopanisad comes from the Yajurveda, but I didn't know which chapter. So thank you for telling us that it's chapter 39 or 40 of the Yajurveda. So that's why I mentioned that how the Vedas mainly deal with the ritualistic ceremonies and things. But in between, they put this spiritual knowledge so that people might realize that beyond these rituals, there's something more. And that's pure devotional service. That's realizing the absolute truth. So yes, it's chapter 39 of the Yajurveda.
Prabhu, one more question actually. So again, the discussion about why this material world is perfect. So the gist of it, as you mentioned, is that it's perfect because this material world is the place which allows us to go back to Godhead. Is that why it is perfect?
Yes,
Is
and
that
this is why we never fall down again, because it's allowing us to go back to God, but it's doing it in such a perfect way that we'll never want to make that mistake again. Just like a prison house is known as a correctional institution, right? The actual name of a prison house is not prison, it's correctional institution. So ideally speaking, a perfect prison would be where a person who goes in comes out completely corrected, so that they never do the crime again. But what do you see today's prison houses? That the people go to prison. In prison, they become even more bigger criminals. And when they come out, then they do that same crime again. And then they go to prison again. So that's an imperfect correctional institution. But Krishna's correctional institution is such that we come in this world and we have to suffer when we're here, so many things. But by going through all these experiences, by the time we come out, we are perfectly, you could say, prepared for the spiritual world, and we will never make that mistake again, those mistakes again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. And yes, Para Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. So actually on the same topic, the world is perfect. So I had heard a quote, right? So everything in this universe is going perfectly well. Like, sun is rising, galaxy is also moving in their own route and all those things, right? But there one little thing in human's mind makes this whole imperfect, right? A little thing, maybe like, maybe someone talks something not nice to that person, and then that whole day or that whole week goes bad for that person. So in a way, the universe is perfect, but what makes us think that is imperfect is just the mind which we have, and it plays tricks on us. So thinking of any more thing than maybe like tolerating all these minds, all those wayward thinking, and going with the nature's, the rules and regulations, I think we will find it perfect, right? Then so mind makes it imperfect, whereas everything is perfect. There is nothing wrong there.
Very nice. You bring up another very nice point, that actually for a self-realized soul, therefore, this material world is perfect because it's all in relationship with Krishna. And Prabhupada writes this in one place, that the only person who's enjoying this material world, right? We all want to enjoy the material world, but the only person who's actually enjoying the material world is the devotee of the Lord, because they actually know how to enjoy it. They actually know how to enjoy this world. Everyone else is actually suffering and they're thinking they're enjoying. But a devotee of the Lord, he picks the mangoes, and he knows that he should eat mangoes and not this horrible flesh that causes cancer. And he takes that mango, he cuts it, he offers it to the Lord, it becomes Krishna Prasad, and then he enjoys the most sweetest mango. So it's actually the devotees who know how to enjoy this world. And because their mind is not conditioned, for them this world is perfect because it has a relationship with Krishna. Very nice. Yes. Karthik Chandra Prabhu. Final question, comment. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji, so much for a wonderful class. Thank you. Appreciate it. Prabhuji, it's regarding I think couple of slides before, the Prabhupada was saying, this knowledge is the one, which helps us to overcome our sinning, because we came to know that everything belongs to Lord, and He's the supreme enjoyer, and we have to kind of assist Him. And with that assisting Him in Lord's service, then we also get enjoyment. And that's our real swabha also, right? So the practical point is, when we are conscious, the daytime, then we try to hear like that and keep that in the consciousness growing, if possible, not fully, but to try to go. But sometimes how to keep it in when we are about to sleep, or when in the middle of the sleep, sometimes when we are not really fully conscious, and at the time on the lower nature also might come out. So how do we manage practically? How do devotees?
How do we manage what?
How do we manage during the subconscious times, when we are not fully aware? I mean, even when you're aware itself, it's it's very difficult for us to keep the consciousness. But how do we transition those times?
That's very nice question. So there are many techniques. One of the things that, for example, we've started doing at my home, that at night we put this Krishna book on. Prabhupada's Krishna book as recited by Amala Bhakta Prabhu. If you type Amala Bhakta Krishna book on YouTube, you can get it. The whole Krishna book is narrated by him. And we put it on at night. It's so soothing. It stays on all night and we just fall asleep. And when you wake up, you actually feel a little, spiritually refreshed. Because though most of the night we're sleeping, but it's still going in. And then in between, when you're waking, you're hearing it. When you wake up in the morning, you're also hearing it. So in this way, the consciousness becomes more and more absorbed in Krishna. And that's why I was just listening to a very nice class where they were saying that how every decision that we make, not just the decision concerning our sadhana or concerning this or that, but every decision in life that we make must be a Krishna conscious decision. And that will make our entire existence Krishna conscious. So where we sleep, how we sleep, when we sleep, also when we sleep. If we're sleeping too late, getting up late, we won't be able to be Krishna conscious. We have to sleep early and wake up early. Like last night, I slept late and I still got up early. So now, as you can see during class, I'm struggling a little bit. And as a result of that, I'm less Krishna conscious. I'm focusing less on Isopanisad. And so when we sleep also, getting our schedule right, getting our focus right on Krishna, also is part of our Krishna consciousness. Where we study, what we study, what association we choose, all of these things have an effect on our subconscious mind. So the advanced devotees of the Lord, they're serving Krishna during the day in a waking condition. While they're awake, they're serving through their hands and legs in a waking condition. But at night, when they're serving the Lord, when they're sleeping, then they're serving the Lord through dreams. They actually get dreams of the Lord. And they're serving internally through that, because the dream world is also a real world. It's a world of the mind. So in the mind, they can serve the Lord. And there's this very nice book, Kirtan Revolution, that's come out. It's a biography of Aindrapu. And Aindrapu, at one point, he says that I was at a certain point, he was looking forward more to sleeping than staying awake. Because when he would sleep, then he would be dreaming about Krishna and his service to Krishna, and he had sort of realized his Swarupa, his eternal form, and he was dreaming in his dream how he was serving the Lord. Of course, that's a very high stage. We should not imitate. Our focus should be to sleep more and more less, not more and more, but we should sleep less. And he was only sleeping a few hours a day. But he said, but during those few hours, I was dreaming about the Lord. So even while they're sleeping, they're dreaming. Advanced souls, we see that, when they wake up or while they're dreaming, their eyes, they become they're open and very intent, because they're not just sleeping, they're actually focusing in their dream, they're focusing upon the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada writes this in one place. He says that this material world is a dream, right? This material whole experience, this life is a dream. It's 100-year dream, but it's a dream because it has a beginning and an end. And so when we serve Krishna in this dream, so much so that we are even serving him inside the dream of the dream, within the dream of the dream. So at night when we're dreaming within the dream of this life, right? That our service is so intense that even within the dream we're serving the Lord. Then Krishna breaks this dream. Then he breaks us out of this dream and allows us to come to reality. So that's actually the point that we need to bring our Krishna consciousness to, that we are so much absorbed in Krishna's service during the day that at night the only thing we can dream about is Krishna. And when we dream about Krishna, then Krishna breaks us out of the dream. I was just listening to a short snippet from His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj's lecture this morning. And Maharaj was saying that someone asked him, how can we chant more attentively? How can we chant nicely? And Maharaj says that it is impossible to chant nicely unless during the day when we're not chanting, we are Krishna conscious. Right? And that chanting during the day will reflect in our chanting so that then we can chant nicely. So when we chant, we have to be attentive and chant nicely. But we have to understand that we are also chanting, or we could say we're preparing for our chanting when we're not chanting during the day. Because what we do during the day will affect our chanting. Just like if someone's watching movies all day, karmi movies. If they're watching karmi movies, this and that and all this, dramas going on in their head, this material drama, then when they come to chant, how will they think of Krishna? They'll think about the movie. Because at that time, the mind is empty. When you're chanting, you'll think about the movie. But if you're absorbed in thought of Krishna all day, if you're reading Krishna book, if you're reading Bhagavatam, if you're doing Bhakti Shastri, if you're, preaching, doing book distribution, or serving in the temple, or serving a devotee, if we're absorbed in Krishna conscious thought all day, then when we chant, our thoughts will go to Krishna. So people ask so much, how do we chant it? And how do it's so hard, this and that? It's hard because our day is not Krishna conscious. If our day is Krishna conscious, then our chanting will be very Krishna conscious. Our sleeping will also be Krishna conscious.
So much, Prabhuji. Sure.
Thank you. Yes. And that's something you can try, is put a tape of Prabhupada or Krishna book, something that your mind doesn't latch onto. Otherwise, you keep hearing it and you don't fall asleep. But put Krishna book on at night before you go to sleep, and just keep it running like on a like from one to the next, like that. It keeps going. You can try that. It's very nice, actually. Softly, it plays softly. Or some people have Prabhupada chanting or singing. Prabhupada, like my Guru Maharaj, all night he has Prabhupada bhajans going on. He has a little recorder, and it's going on all night, like that. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for your very kind attention. This Isopanisad is very special. Don't think that it's just a basic book. It's actually a very deep book, and please read it carefully, and please do your homework. I'll share all the homework today for the whole book. I'll post it on the WhatsApp group and start chipping away. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Dandvat pranam.
Dandvat
Hare
pranam.
Krishna, Dandvat Pranam.
And
Thank you
Hare
so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, mere Prabhuji. Yeah.